You're tuned in to Horror Slop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is Horror Slop. And now the first descent. One story to open the night. Just enough to crack the door and let something in.
Cassie worked at a tech company. The kind that focuses mainly on finding the newest, biggest, most innovative idea out there. She was a rather big shot in there, which consequently meant that she had to travel a crazy amount of time. I remember when she told me about Earworm for the first time. Her eyes were shining so bright. Well, obviously music is only the first step. But don't you think it's absolutely insane that we are able to do this in the first place? She said as her eyes grew even bigger. Though for now, it was only music. Music that my love and I would share. The annoying earworms as well as the songs that came to our mind when we thought of each other. A way for us to share our biggest interest while we were apart, as Cassie had to go abroad for 2 months to introduce Earworm to their partner company. I will be working crazy hours and I won't have much time for anything else. I just want us to stay connected as well as we can. And you'd help me test the advice as well, she grinned. Alright. But no musicals. / We got the devices planted inside our ears on the day of her departure. It didn't hurt or anything, but it did feel a little strange. Like it wasn't supposed to be there. At first, there was nothing. Possibly because my mind was pretty blank as I drove my girlfriend to the airport later that day. I guess so was hers. Can you repeat the question? Cassie suddenly started singing. I hadn't even realized that I was thinking of a song. I was watching Malcolm in the Middle that morning. I guess the intro just came to my mind. And pretty cool too, right? She asked. I guess. It's definitely different. Depends if you're gonna torture me with your terrible taste over there, I joked as we got her suitcase out of the car. About a lucky man who made the grade. She was listening to music now. I heard it very faintly. Like background music in a movie. I lay in bed just listening to what Cassie heard in her ears all those miles away. He blew his mind out in a car. The following days we hardly called or texted. Our communication went mainly through music, and it was the most exciting interaction we'd ever had. As for me, it was just getting really fucking annoying. Cassie had music in her ears most hours of the day, and if she didn't, there would be a tune stuck in her mind. Usually one verse of some annoying song that I would hear over and over again. As we were in different time zones, sometimes I'd hear music until the latest hours. My sleeping schedule was absolutely wrecked. All I was longing for was a little bit of silence. Just a moment alone with my thoughts and without another sound. I couldn't believe I'd ever reached that point in life, but I was sick of music. And for days she kept that promise. We still heard each other's earworms at times, but it went back to being nice. On my birthday she woke me up with my favorite song. She had to get up at 3 a.m. for that. To Die by Your Side. / Cassie didn't like Joy Division. Maybe she had people over. I tried to shut off the song in my mind and get back to bed. But it would keep playing on repeat. And it got louder each time. Lights are flashing, cars are crashing. Cass, can you turn it down, please? I have work tomorrow. I'm watching you, I'm watching. So when you're near me, darling, can't you hear me, SOS? And the love you gave me, nothing else can save me, SOS. I texted her again. Cass, are you watching Mamma Mia again? You promised no musicals. Again, there was no response. It felt strange that she was listening to two songs at the same time, with the ABBA one being so faint in comparison. Was she trying to send me a message? They were hurting the insides of my soul. After Cassie still didn't respond to anything I sent her, I called one of her colleagues. A guy that worked in the earworm team as well. He promised me that he had been testing the device for weeks now with nothing remotely close ever happening to him. But this wasn't only about the device anymore, I could tell that something was awfully wrong. I believe I heard what death sounds like.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
I was not supposed to notice him. I Did, by Kyla Blythe 1. I stood in the bedroom doorway of a house I didn't recognize. It was empty and silent. The hallway was long and the front door was just around the corner. I didn't move, I was supposed to be there. I waited. I was vaguely aware of my consciousness, the thoughts that make me me, lost somewhere in my head. My consciousness was scared, confused, and frantic. It tried to gain control of my body again. It couldn't. I heard front door open, and a man walked through. He said nothing. I waited until I could see him. He rounded the corner. I was supposed to greet him. "Hello," I said. "Hello," he said without moving his mouth. I heard it, but not with my ears. It was loud. My consciousness recoiled. My eyes did not move from his, but I took in his appearance. My eyes were not supposed to move from his. His arms and legs were too long for his gaunt, pale body. I was not supposed to notice this, so I didn't. "Yes," he replied without moving his mouth. My consciousness didn't like that. "Don't like that," I said. A hand finally moved towards my face. It was long and bony with too many joints. I wasn't supposed to notice this, so I didn't. I stepped back. I wasn't supposed to step back. The man looked at me. He was angry. He screamed with 1,000 voices. I stood in the bedroom of a house I almost recognized. A few pieces of furniture were scattered here and there. There were faint voices and car horns outside. The man took a step towards me. My eyes did not move from his, they weren't supposed to. "Yes," he said. His mouth did not move. His long, twisted hand reached for my face. I was supposed to let him take my mind for himself. "I am supposed to let you take my mind." My consciousness screamed. It seemed louder now. I took a second step back. "I will not." The man was angry. He screamed in 1,000 voices. My eyes were not supposed to move from his. They did. "Get out of my house," my consciousness screamed. "Get out of my house," I screamed. "You will not return here," I growled. It screamed that awful scream at me. "You will not return here," I roared. "I will not return here," it said, its mouth never moving. It flung itself out of the front door. I collapsed. "You are not supposed to notice when he comes."
Something still listening. and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
I was still quite new to operating when a girl named Kelly called. Kelly's case was quite different from the ones I was used to handling, such as prank calls, actual suicide calls, creep calls, etc. She had called asking for advice on her suicidal best friend. Caller, Hi, my name is Kelly. Could you help me? Caller, I think my friend is suicidal. Me, what makes you think that? Caller, she told me once she wasn't happy at home. She sometimes gets picked on at school too. But sometimes she mentions suicide. I just want to help her. But I don't know what to do. I don't want her to commit suicide, she's my best friend. Kelly talked hastily, her nerves showing in her voice. Me, okay, Kelly, I can call you Kelly, right? Caller, oh, sure. Caller, yeah, you're right. But how would I bring up the topic though? Me, remember, hypothetically your friend might also be afraid of being hated and avoided by you too. Caller, so she doesn't get hurt? Caller, okay, I get it. I think I know how to talk to her. Thanks so much for listening. I think I just needed someone to listen to my worries. Me, no problem, good luck with your friend. Caller, okay, thanks, miss. Have a good day. That was Kelly's first call. I was quite proud of myself for being useful to someone, but my conversation with Kelly was soon forgotten as I carried on taking calls. About a month passed by normally, until Kelly's next call. A person named Kelly. Kelly, yeah, breathes in and out. I called the police already, they're on their way. I'm sorry, I just needed someone. Anybody. They told me to stall her and keep her from jumping. But, I. There was a few moments of silence and more muffled yelling. Kelly, I'm sorry. Sob. There was no reply. The only sound was the loud shuffling of wind, like the sound a video picks up as you're running. Me, Kelly. Kelly was yelling at the top of her lungs. The phone filled with her crying and voice breaking. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. All I could do was sit there listening, eyes tearing up. The rest of the day I tried my best to calm myself down. I told myself I wouldn't have been able to do anything, that I tried my hardest and did what I could do. A few weeks passed, but the incident was still fresh in my mind. I had managed to accept what happened, and although it still hurt thinking about it, that traumatic experience made me work harder. It was after all my first death, it made me want to push myself harder to not let that happen again. The wounds from that day were beginning to close, and although I had fully accepted never knowing whether or not Kelly's friend turned out to be okay, I found out anyway. I had just finished ordering a vanilla latte, when a young girl walked up to me. She had long, wavy light brown hair that was pulled up into a high ponytail, and large dark eyes that made her look like she was in constant shock. Freckles peppered her hopeful face. She looked to be around 15. I didn't recognize her. Excuse me, is your name by any chance Robbie? I nodded, yes, I go by Robbie. I'm sorry, but... do I know you? It's me, Kelly. She said. Oh my God. I blurted. How's your friend? Did she? She shook her head, Bree. Oh, she's fine now. I don't really remember what happened. The policeman that helped me said I fainted and that, she trailed off for a second, as if remembering something. But before I could ask anything, like a rubber band snapping back in place, she was back to normal. I shook my head. No, just getting a drink. I've got no plans for today. What about you? I smiled. Sure. Brianna Rose. The image of a memorial for a girl who committed suicide flashed through my mind. I would pass it every once in a while when I went to that part of town.
You're still tuned to Horace Lopp. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
I'm Living My Life Backwards, by Richard Saxon. Tomorrow is the day my wife dies. It won't be an expected death, nor is it one that she deserves. What will happen is a simple, random act with no meaning beyond fate's command. I'm so sorry, Lucy. That'll be it. The last memory I have of my wife alive. Once her body has been buried, and once I've moved away to another city, I'll forget she ever existed. All I'll be left with is a hole in my heart that I won't be able to fill until the day I finally die. In the most bizarre way, I'm living my life backwards. I am burdened with the knowledge of tomorrow, knowing fully well I can do nothing to alter the oncoming passage of time. Thus, at the ripe old age of 35, I have forgotten every single, factual detail about my life. And, once these words have been put down on paper, they'll be gone too, washed away by a fractured mind. Then, as the next morning arrived, my mother was shocked to see that my predictions had come true. Baffled, but still skeptic, she wrote it down in her own diary as little more than an oddity. Just a year later, my mother found me crying in my room. I was distraught because our cat had died. She sat down and started to comfort me. Sure, our pet was of advancing age, but he still remained healthy, as curious as ever. In the middle of my frantic cries, the cat just walked in, checking what the commotion was about. Whether my ability was a gift or a curse, my mother never loved me any less. Instead, she took it upon herself to write down whatever moments we shared. That way my life, though not remembered, would never be forgotten. On the slippery roads, my mother was supposed to drive. As she turned a foggy corner, she was hit by a drunk driver who didn't react in time to stop. She died then, on my birthday, and I couldn't accept it. So I died something horrible, and changed it. That's the day I learned the true curse of my condition. I did everything I could to convince my mother not to go. I begged her to stay at home, threatened that I wouldn't show up for my own birthday if she as much as set a foot outside the house. The worst part is, that since I never actually experienced her death as it was supposed to happen, it's the only memory of my past I still remember. Though it doesn't match up with reality. In my mind, she was hit by the drunk driver, but according to every available document, she spent her final years in a coma, only dying once her body finally gave out. By the time of my mother's death, my girlfriend had known about my curse for years, and took it upon herself to take over the task of recording my life. Each event, important or minor, was jotted down into the same notebook that my mother had carried around for so many years. To this day, I don't know what I've done to deserve such an amazing woman. Despite my complicated life, she still loved me. It was odd though, having known each other since children, as she got to know me, I was starting to forget her. I guess it helped, having grown up side by side with my secret. That's the only way she could possibly understand, to see beyond it, to who I truly am. Even then, as we first met, I knew we'd end up married one day. Of course I did, I had every single memory stored in my mind. Maybe that fact allowed me to act more confident than I truly was, or maybe destiny played a hand in our pairing, I don't know. But, by the time we entered an age where crushes became an acceptable fact, we quickly started dating. Which brings us to the present day.
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse, in the best way.
If you hear a baby crying in the woods, don't follow it. Pictures included, by Worcester St. I pulled out my phone to look at the map. There was no service, but I downloaded a map of the area just in case. I saw that, if I followed the road, it was a 10-mile walk that wound back and forth along some back roads. I didn't like that idea very much. I also saw that the town was actually only 2 miles away as the crow flies. In a direct line from me, I just have to climb a little bit to cut my journey down. I shot a look up the mountain, left a note on my car saying what I was doing, and set off through the brush. I paused for a moment before heading in the direction of the call. There was no one around for miles, and now there's this kid. After a few minutes of walking, I stumbled across what had to have been a 100-year-old cemetery. There were no headstones, just rocks marking the spots where the people must have been buried. I couldn't hear any more crying. Video of the cemetery. That's when the dry papery fingers slid around the back of my throat. Nails dug into the skin, and I thought I heard a high raspy giggle from behind me just before they began to squeeze. There was nothing there. I ran away, trying to put as much distance between myself and the cemetery as I could. When I finally reached the town, I put my hand up to my neck and felt the scrapes on my neck. I told myself it was just a tree, but I knew that wasn't true. I managed to get an old mechanic to come help me with my car. On the way back I asked him a question about a cemetery up in the hills. He stiffened, looked at me, and said, //Worcester Street.
That last one tasted like fear and poor decisions. Let's see what the next bite stirs. Hope you're hungry.
That night the story was still in the #1 spot. All the stories had shifted around it, but this story was still on top. Still with no upvotes. At that point I literally dismissed it. It was a glitch, some impossibility I could not understand that I did not care. Spot number 2 was my new spot number 1, and that was fine with me. My suspicion of system malfunction was only confirmed when the story was still on top the next day. And the next. And the next week. And the next month. I got used to tuning it out of my radar and automatically skipping one story down. I did this for about 3 months until finally, I realized, hey, why don't I just read this story? Yeah, it was annoying having this junk at the top of my computer that never had any votes, but why couldn't I just give it a chance? The first part was titled Nick. This was his story. First off, these stories weren't really stories at all. They were ridiculous, terribly written and made no sense. There were dozens of them, stories upon stories, and each was as terrible as the last, ending the same way with them being eaten by whoever we was. As they progressed, the endings grew slightly more descriptive with something white coming from their mouths, but each story was still stupid. To make it worse, each usage of to and to was reversed and wrong. So why couldn't I stop reading? I realized after about 20 of the stories what time it was, almost half an hour after I had begun. After 100 mini-stories, I started to get worried for myself. I had already missed the time I was supposed to leave for work, but I couldn't seem to get up. After about 200 stories, I stopped worrying. All I could focus on was the words. The story. How good it was. How much I loved it. How much I would give just to keep reading. Everything. Something was wrong. Deep inside I knew it, but wouldn't let that feeling out. I just couldn't comprehend it while I was reading, being taken over. The last thing I remember is getting to a name on the page, not the final name with the final stupid story, but a name that mattered. Tim was bored. Tim read scary stories. Tim read a story he tried not to. Tim liked the story very, very much. Tim could not stop reading. Tim had a tasty soul we wanted. Tim read and read and read. Tim opened his mouth. Tim. Like that, the trance was over. I looked down at my phone and realized my mouth was open. Immediately I slammed the computer shut, and when I tentatively opened it later, the story was gone. Guys, I'm still not sure exactly what happened, but I think I can figure it out. No Sleep is great. I probably won't stop reading it, but I think there is something on here, something alive and wrong, that you need to watch out for. The story I read was a story I could read, but I think, sometimes, the living thing finds its way into other stories.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
When all of the children in our town disappeared, everyone was heartbroken. When all of the children in our town reappeared, everyone was terrified, by Bunny B03. We set up his tricycle, placing the largest yellow bow atop the handlebars that we could find. Nina's mother's tradition dictated that we place an orange at the bottom of his stocking, but the rest was filled with little toys and candy. I groaned as she handed me the full plate of cookies. Ugh, why do we always make so many again? I joked. Nina took off running to his room on instinct, fearing that he'd left the house and gotten hit by a car or injured. I held my breath, praying to hear his sleepy little voice. But so far, my wife's calls had gone unanswered. What do you mean he's not here? You haven't even checked the living room. Chris, I'm telling you our baby's not fucking here. She choked out through sobs. Her footsteps boomed through the house and I hear the front door slam shut as she left. As the months went on and the seasons changed, most of the parents in town had reached the same heart-rendering conclusion, until this morning. The covers are thrown in a corner of the room as I spring out of my now cold bed. Each step closer to my son fills my heart with a happiness I feared I no longer possessed. The long-lost and dearly missed sound of his voice stops me cold. Whoever is talking to Nina is not our little boy. His voice sounds low and detached, like it's being run through a voice synthesizer. Once again, the street is thick with police officers, but fire rescue is here this time too. Parents are holding disfigured children as they're laid on stretchers. Each one yelling about how they're fine and don't need treatment. I caught eyes with the little girl who lived across the street from us and I recognized one of them as my son's. Whatever happened, it's as if each child was put into a machine, had their DNA all mixed and randomized, then spit back out. The children walk, talk, eat and play like they always have. It's almost impossible to tell whose is whose anymore. I'm writing this as a warning and for proof for Ronnie down the line to know that his dad and mom love him, and never regret a single thing about who he is. We're taking him the hell out of here. By the time they notice a child's missing, we will be long gone. Surely there's somewhere in the world that will greet him with acceptance and love. We're just happy to have him back. Though, I can't help but wonder what surprises Nina and I will wake up to this Christmas Day morning.
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back down now. Next story's already watching.
I'm here because I believe he witnessed an event. An encounter of overwhelming significance, and one which I believe could explain a series of grisly murders which have gone unsolved, and plagued this sleepy town for close to 10 years. It's just a stupid nursery rhyme, Ryan says, bookending his words with a smirk. Something to keep the kids inside after dark. Militant parental shit, you know. He stares at me for a few seconds, a smile playing on the corners of his lips. Eventually he huffs and shakes his head. You serious, man? I was seeing shit. There isn't a mystery to be solved, I was just stoned as fuck. Marijuana doesn't typically elicit hallucinations. I pocket the badge. It's a recent enterprise. We believe that entering the public eye could lead to increased tensions, and potential panic. Sounds like X-Files shit. He narrows his eyes at me. What makes my event noteworthy? He leans back, picks up his styrofoam coffee cup and takes a sip. I notice one of his fingers wrapped in gauze. Yeah. The shadow sorta looked like a demon or something. There's a pause. A silence stretches between us. You in league with demons? He laughs, tries to play it cool, but the question is genuine. A smile plays on his lips, as if he's waiting for me to laugh at a joke I made, but I don't. It wasn't a joke. I reach for my clipboard and click my pen. Alright, Ryan. I'd like you to start from the beginning. The night you took the photo on your Instagram, what events led to that moment? He sighs and runs a hand through his tangle of hair. It's a bit of a long story. Don't worry, I assure him. I have plenty of time. He doesn't speak. Instead, his eyes dart around the garage. They move from the window in the back, to the door along the wall leading into the house, and then to the windows on the garage door proper. He's looking for faces. Cameras, maybe. He thinks this might be an elaborate prank. Perhaps one his older brother orchestrated to make him look foolish. It's a response that my orientation warned me about and prepared me for. I've seen unexplainable things too, Ryan. He glances up, and the playful aloofness is gone from his eyes. It's been replaced with desperation. He's hoping against hope that this isn't a joke, because he needs to talk about what he saw, because he knows he's experienced something unexplainable. He's probably terrified that he's going insane. You have, he says quietly. Several times. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I place my pen down on the clipboard, taking a breath and letting the veneer of professionalism fall away. According to my orientation, people are more likely to open up if you do first. The truth is, Ryan, there's plenty in this world we don't have answers for, but only a handful of us are ever visited by such phenomena. Some call it paranormal. I call it misunderstood. I give him a smile, and it's genuine. Please, tell me about the photo. Tell me about the events that lead up to it. Alright, he mutters. It was 3 days ago, Ryan says. Shannon Gilmore was having a house party. A kegger. Her dad took off on a business trip and he's fucking loaded, so there's plenty of room in the house. I mean, the thing's like 3 stories tall. How many people were there? He rubs his shoulder, and I spot the gauzed finger again. It's a good sign. I don't know, maybe 50, he says. 60. I wasn't really counting. Just like, talking shit about spirits and ghosts. He gives a small laugh and shakes his head. She says she's attuned to them or something. It's ridiculous. I check the box labeled skeptic on my clipboard. So anyway, I start teasing her for being a bit loony. Just playfully, you know. Nothing harsh. He swallows, and I catch sight of his hands, still holding his cup in his lap. They're trembling, and his gauzed index finger is out of place. It's folded inward, out of sight against the cup. She bets me that she could show me a ghost. She says there's this old legend about something called Snip Pity Snap, which I mean, duh. The entire town knows that stupid nursery rhyme. He takes a breath, it's deep, and when he speaks again his voice cracks. She tells me that it's real. I circle the box labeled influenced. It's not uncommon for people who believe they've encountered an urban legend to have actually just been heavily influenced by external sources. If somebody tells you something is real with enough vindication, humans have a tendency to believe it. If only a little. Had she encountered Snip Pity Snap before? He shakes his head. I don't know. Maybe. She was fucking weird. Uneasy feeling. Like she wasn't right in the head. She closed the door behind us and we walked down the creaky steps in the dark. I tried turning on the lights but she snapped at me. Don't. The Becca girl appears familiar with the ritual. The greater the darkness, the higher the likelihood of a successful summoning. At this point, how far were you from the rest of the party? Ballpark. Then she gets sweet again. She says we can both fuck around all we want once she proves to me that this thing is real, and I'm drunk enough that I agree. I mean, there's an implication there, right? You said she had you participate in some kind of ritual. Can you describe that for me, please? Truthfully, I know the ritual full well. I've even done it myself on several occasions, though all of them proved unsuccessful. It requires an incantation, a pair of scissors, and a human finger. Ryan takes a deep breath. His hands grip the inside of his sweater sleeves. She cut my finger. Snip. He says the word quietly, distantly. As she did it, she said a sort of chant. The first line of that old nursery rhyme. Snip Pity Snap, you'll come back. His index finger. I record the details on my clipboard. Multiple lacerations. Significant loss of blood. Mental unease. If you thought she was nuts, why would you let her do that? When she cut you, I press. Did something happen? I mean that you're fairly large for your age and appear to be in decent shape. If you wanted to break free of this girl and her ritual, it shouldn't have been much of an issue. I gesture to him with my hand. And yet you sit before me, with so many cuts on your finger that it's hard to tell where one stitching ends and another begins. Such a phenomena leads me to believe that something happened. Something kept you there, and in pain. I raise an eyebrow. He swallows, looks from the badge, to my face and back to the badge. He's comparing and contrasting. He's making sure I am who I say I am. It's a good sign. It means he's ready to talk, but he needs assurance beforehand. He needs to know he isn't being played for a fool. What's your employee number? He asks. A 9342 or 32. It's the first thing we're quizzed on upon being hired. It's critical we remember it. Just to warn you, he says. This next part is gonna sound insane. If it didn't, I wouldn't be here. I write his account down as he speaks. It's important that I get every detail. The kiss isn't a part of the ritual, but it's a part of the coercion. Whoever this Becca girl is, she's familiar enough with the legend to know exactly what it requires to be summoned. Perhaps she'd been visited by it too. She cuts me again, Ryan says, and his expression falls and his lips quiver. Blood isn't dripping off of me anymore, it's flowing. Like a faucet set to low. It's just the two of us in the basement, and I know that for a fact because there weren't any lights on when we got there, and there's no bedrooms. It's just an open cellar. Nobody just hangs out in the fucking dark. He shakes his head, and again his hand disappears into his sleeve, gripping at the inside anxiously. But I get this sense that we're not alone. Like something's watching us. He's choking the words out now, his body trembling against the torrent of emotions he's likely feeling. Snip pity snap, you'll come back, she says again with the scissors, except now her voice is different. He takes a moment, his teeth gnaw on his bottom lip. His eyes are detached, lost in the memory. I'm not proud of it, but I flung my arm back. Hit her in the face, and she fell down. I didn't care though, I mean the bitch was crazy, right? Cutting me after I told her I was finished, what the fuck was that? Yeah. Screamed that I was a pussy and a coward. She screamed I was such a scared little bitch and that she hoped Snip Pity Snap would cut my head off. I write it all down. The aggressiveness with which Becca wished to instigate the ritual was alarming to say the least, but not unheard of. Such entities can have profound effects on those who follow them. That still doesn't explain the rest of the cuts. And then what? Eyes, I mutter, a smile forming on my lips. You took a photo. It was impulsive and stupid, but I needed to know that I wasn't imagining it. That it was real. So I snapped the picture and made a run for it, but Becca grabbed me by the ankle. I hit the ground hard. His hand stops rubbing his neck, and his eyes glisten with newborn tears. The next thing I know, the scissor sounds stop. No snipping. No snapping. Just silence, and then Becca starts laughing. Laughing? I frown, hoping I didn't come all this way for a practical joke. This is it. I lean forward. To have a real case so quickly is almost unheard of within the facility. It takes most of our new hires months to come across something real. Some agents have worked there for nearly a year without success. Yet here I am, having achieved it within my first week. Did you give it an offering? I ask, excitement lacing my words. He chokes back a sob. I remember feeling lightheaded from the blood loss, and right when my fingers started feeling numb to the pain, Becca stops. I don't know if she did it because she'd had enough, or because I was crying, or because I pissed myself. I guess. He exhales, as though letting go of some great weight that's been holding him down. Once she stopped cutting, I realized the creature was gone, and before she could do anything else I booked it up the stairs and got my dad to drive me home. He nods. Yeah, sure. 1 second. He pulls out his phone and navigates to the photograph, then passes the device to me. I study the image. It's similar to what I viewed on his social media, but given the low lighting and shakiness of the photograph, the compression algorithm wreaked havoc on it. This original version is much cleaner. For instance, whereas his Instagram showed only a shadow with a faint outline, this one provides additional details. It's humanoid, mostly, but distinct in important ways. Its form is taller, for one. It's bow-legged and slouched, with a sort of zigzag to its posture, like a person suffering from severe scoliosis. I make a note on my clipboard regarding its appearance, and then resume my study of the photo. Thank you, I say, passing the phone back to him. I make a final notation on my clipboard labeled Survivor. If it's alright with you, Ryan, I'd like to know Becca's last name. Her last name. And number X200B.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
Oh, your mother probably wouldn't want me to tell you. It's not a nice story. Let's just say they remind me of your grandmother and leave it at that. Come on. I'm practically an adult. I can handle it. My mom walked into the room and glared at him. She handed us some ice cream, and my grandpa didn't budge again. The story is about your grandmother leaving us. It's painful for us to talk about. My mom offered once after I had pestered her about it. I understood then why nobody wanted to talk about it, and over time, I lost the desire to hear it. I almost forgot about it, until this morning. My grandpa called me last week to tell me that he had a heart attack. He was okay and being discharged. I asked him if I could visit. This morning, I arrived to his house from the airport to find the familiar drapes drawn over the mirrors. My curiosity came back, but I couldn't ask an old man that had just had a heart attack to reminisce about the love of his life leaving him. They gave you a pacemaker, Grandpa, you'll be fine. We had just moved into our first real house after living in the basement apartment of my parents' house. Your mother was about 6 and really needed her own room. There was an antique mirror back there, one of those self-standing mirrors with a swivel covered with a sheet. The thing must have been as old as the house, maybe older. We talked about having it appraised to see if it was worth anything, but decided to keep it as a talking piece. We finished the basement, and set the mirror up as a decoration. At our celebration get-together, we realized there was something strange about the mirror. We kept using that space for weekend gatherings. Your grandmother would cook some hors d'oeuvre, and we'd have some drinks. The mirror was always a fun little attraction. Our anniversary was coming up, so I came up with a plan to help bring the magic back. I got one of the neighbor girls to watch your mother, and took your grandmother out to dinner and dancing at a new restaurant. They had floor-to-ceiling mirrors throughout the place. When your grandmother saw her reflection in those mirrors, she sobbed. I thought I had messed up, but then she kissed me. "This is how I always see you, baby," I said back. My grandpa was crying now. I may have been too. "You need to know," he said. He wiped his eyes and began again. "Your grandmother went to search the basement, and after I had looked through your mother's room, I went down to check on her. I was almost to the point I could see the reflection, when the sitter yelled down the stairs that she had found your mother in her room, hiding under the bed. I came home one day to your mother locked in her room while your grandmother pounded on the door with a kitchen knife in her hand. She was saying, 'Give me back my daughter, you bitch.' I tried to talk to her, but she lunged at me with the knife and accused me of being replaced too. I didn't know what to do, so I called 911. It killed me to do it. The cops took my statement, and eventually we settled on the idea that she hadn't run into the basement, and I had mistaken which door she used in the heat of the moment. They never found her, but I started seeing her in the mirrors. First just the one in the basement, then all throughout the house." He pulled the curtains and smiled sadly at the mirror. I couldn't see anything while seated, but I stood and froze. I finished my visit with him somewhat stunned and went to check in to my hotel. I am staying a few more days. "Talk about anything interesting?" she asked. "Hello, did I lose you?" she said. "Not really, just hospital stuff." "Sorry, I got a text," I said, forcing myself back. After I got off the phone, I put a sheet over the mirror.
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah, that's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
My twin lives under the bed, by polonium poisoning. It was a terrible accident, Dad says. It could have happened to anyone. Please don't think poorly of your mother, she loves you so, so much. I was always curious. A nosy child. That's probably why I know everything I know. Still, I didn't think a lot about any of it until I was around 10. She was so tired, and her hand slipped because she drowsed. Then Mark, at only a few weeks old, was on the floor, his little head crumpled by the fall. Of course I can't remember it, but I assume it to be true because I know babies' heads are really soft, their design is super stupid overall. I imagine there was a lot of blood and ugly crying, and maybe his little brain was all gooey and scattered on the floor, but Dad won't tell me the gore details. I remember the first time I asked Dad directly about Mark. I think I was 11. So was Mom disappointed to have Mark? What's the matter, Dad? We never told you your brother's name, so how do you? Oh, Dad, but he told me. He lives under my bed, don't you know? Of course you do. He said he almost died, but then you let him live there. Hiding from Mom, because she would have been too scared. Dad's face was white as a paper. I was young, but I felt like I had peeked through a keyhole and learned about a world I wasn't ready to find yet. Princess, this is a secret only between you and me, and Mark, of course. Don't tell your mother about it, Martha. Never. It's complicated, Princess. I remember the way Dad bit his lip until it bled a little, then told me in a whisper, now go play with Mark, okay? Mom was a successful psychiatrist, whatever that means, so Dad was the one to quit his job and stay home with me. From that day on, he'd make me extra food to feed Mark, buy some boy toys so Mark and I could have more fun, and we even had a secret code to put Mark back under my bed when Dad heard Mom's car parking in front of our house. I was really happy, but I feel like Dad and I started drifting apart. He barely paid attention to the two of us. Maybe he thought that since we were almost teenagers he didn't need to watch us that much, or maybe he didn't like Mark a lot too. But I complied. I loved being a good daughter, and being called princess, and not being spanked for asking questions. Dad kept telling me that it wasn't Mom's fault that Mark died, and I believed him, at first. But as I grew up, I started learning things. I learned that parents tell convenient lies to protect your feelings, and about postpartum depression. Mark, I asked him once, when I was 14. Did Mom try to kill you on purpose? Is it too bad? I love being with you, sis. But in a few years you'll be a grown-up and where will I go? I don't even know how to read. That until recently. Mom's work had an event for the employees' children, and she took me. Until that day, I never heard much about her work, and barely knew what she did. Mom was evil, and she had to go. Even though I never had the courage to actually do it, I've been training for this moment for years. My hands were now strong enough to strangle her. I didn't feel good about killing her. It felt wrong and dirty, although it was a relief. I was like a soldier killing in the war with no joy, but for the greater good. I decided to hide her body under the loose boards of my bedroom. It felt fit. She murdered Mark, and even though he somehow survived, he had to spend 16 years living under my bed. I barely had time to enjoy Mark's newfound freedom because I was so skittish the whole time. Instead, Dad knocked me on the head so hard that I passed out. When I came to, my whole body was restricted by a rope. I heard his muffled voice coming from the next room. He was pacing, nervous and noisy, which meant he was talking on the phone. I still don't know very well what he meant, but that's how I ended up here. The above was written by Martha Goodwill, 16, a newly admitted patient at the St. Alphonsus Humanized Psychiatric Hospital, when asked to write a report about her life and the reason why she was sent here. Travis B. Wilson, head director at the St. Alphonsus Humanized Psychiatric Hospital.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
I get buried alive for a living. Something Else is Down There, by Max Voynich. / You know the type, faded signs out front, called something like Bartholomew and Sons, only staffed by 3 pale old men in ill-fitted black suits, open 364 days a year in a town of about 1,000. Bullshit. Listen close. I'll only say this once. In short, they're everywhere. Secrecy is preferred. No one wants their loved one's funeral run by a multinational corporation. They have a reputation to uphold. And so, if any scandals erupt around the world of funerals, coffins, you name it, their shares tank. All it takes is one horror story. One mother slips into a coma, gets identified as dead, then bitterly claws their way out the coffin and to the surface. Imagine the headlines. Imagine all that shaky, handheld footage going viral. It seems standard procedure to start. I have my usual equipment, a lighter, a help button, a hairpin. I insist on finishing my cigarette as I'm sat in the coffin, as the mechanical arm slowly moves it over the hole. Jake calls me an asshole, tells me that it'll kill me. I look at the coffin, we both grin. Then, as per usual, I lie down, getting myself comfortable, and wait. It takes about 10 minutes all in all, the lid, the earth heaped on top. I wait for a while, taking my time to breathe deep, mentally telling myself that this is not permanent, that worst comes to the worst there's an easy way out. I go through this process each time, running through the motions of reassurance, making sure that I know that this isn't forever. It's my way of talking my body out of a panic, of making sure that whatever happens, my unconscious doesn't kick into overdrive and leave me with a panic attack. I press the button. From the moment you press the button, until the moment you're taken up, there are about 10 minutes. For the digger to move all that dirt, and the arm to pick you up, you've got to brace yourself for the reality that you will not see daylight, no matter how much you want, no matter how close you are to losing it, for 10 minutes. There it is again. Even though we're miles from the last burial site. That scratching, the clawing. The seeming thought behind it all. I'm spending less and less time underground now. I run through the checklist as quickly as possible. I've still got to go down, I have rent to pay, medical bills, debts. Even before I'm done I press the button, desperate to get out, the air in the coffins becomes stifling and too hot, and I swear that whatever that thing is, it's looking for me. Nothing else makes a noise when it's around. As if they're scared. As they've already run away. And it's working its way through the tightly packed earth, through the silt and the shit and the roots, it's taking its time. Time works differently underground. And number X200B. That shift, the sound of multiple fingers working their way through soil. It's adapted. Changed tactics, instead of just aimlessly moving around it's waited at the place it left off, for what must be days on end, for me to be dropped back in. It starts moving again, and this time it's so close I swear to God I can hear it fucking breathing, these wet and ragged breaths that somehow echo from the material of the coffin so they're all around me, filling up every single inch of air with the sound. I'm hammering the button now, hoping that the more I press it the more that the people on the surface will realize that this is serious, that something's wrong, but I've no way of knowing. Then another noise echoes in the dark. It's not just the shifting of soil, but a tap. One at first. I swallow. I can hear my throat contract, the sound of my heart hammering my ribs, and I am suddenly aware of the dense weight of the earth above me, all pushing down and onto the lid of the coffin, stones and roots and seeds all pressed so tightly together I can hardly breathe. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, 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 tap. In between the movements, there's something stranger, a faint, whispered melody. It's haunting, lilting, reminding me of the nursery rhymes my mother used to sing, soft and sad and beautiful. This half-singing, half-humming is getting louder with each moment, and I can't make out any words but just the melody, that loops over and over on itself, as if whatever it is knows I can hear and. It doesn't just sound like one voice anymore, but dozens, all half-singing the same tune, soft and ominous and building to something and. It finds the hinge and I can hear it testing the metal, the thin scratching, and just as I'm about to scream, to completely lose my mind, I hear the familiar rhythm of the digger. They're here. They find my face wet with tears, shaking. Jesus, Jake says, what the fuck happened? He offers me water. My hands are shaking too much to drink it, I shake my head. I see his eyes go wide, and I turn around. But that's not what makes me feel as if I'm going to be sick. No, it's what the scratch marks say. There, carved into the wood of the coffin. And number X200B. We only dream.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in a coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is Horror Slop.
There are 54 words that can hurt me, and soon enough, kill me. If I hear them, say them, read them, or write/type them, I am attacked by something unseen. This only started 4 years ago when I was a sophomore in college. I was sitting in my intro to stats class at the University of Michigan, bored as hell, when my professor used a word I can't type right now, or ever, for that matter. He said ///////////// and my throat suddenly tightened in the packed lecture hall like something was strangling me. After 5 painful seconds, it released its grip, and I gasped for air and screamed in horror. 200 pairs of eyes stared at me curiously with a healthy serving of schadenfreude as I ran out of the room with panicked tears. Later that night, my roommate and best friend, Emma, came back to our dorm room having seen the embarrassing events unfold earlier that day. She comforted me, asking if everything was okay. I explained that for some reason, it felt like something was strangling me in class. She proceeded to lecture me on sleep paralysis and how she once heard that it could happen to people even when they're awake. I looked at her skeptically, and dryly told her that her theory was not based on a proper sample size. She then called me a nerd and told me it was more likely just an anxiety attack. She suggested I go talk to someone about it. She added that I should start meditating in the mornings. Who knew a college sophomore had so much insight? I thanked her for the advice and got into bed, but sleep did not come. Instead, my mind ran through the events of that day in the lecture hall. The moment the professor said ///////// stuck out to me. I quietly whispered Emma's name across the room after a couple hours of thought loops. She groaned and rustled around in her bed, and then looked up at me, frustrated by the late-night intrusion. What? I've been thinking about what happened today. For some reason, when Professor King said backslash 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 dash, something unseen pinned me against the mattress and covered my mouth as I screamed through the powerful invisible hand for what felt like an eternity. This second time around, the attack lasted far longer and it gained in strength. I did not want to experience a third attack. I was almost positive I wouldn't survive it. Fortunately, backslash 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 was a somewhat obscure word, which is why it probably stuck out in my memory in the first place. The psychologist stared at me with a warm smile and asked me to tell her about what was going on. I tried to explain what was happening, and I could already see her trying to box these symptoms into a neat and tidy category she had dealt with before. I knew this conversation was going to be useless, so I stopped talking. She took the silence as an opportunity to start talking about her background and then said this sounded like generalized anxiety disorder. She was about 5 minutes into this tangent, when my mind instinctively caught the start of her sentence and sounded the alarm. My eyes narrowed, my heart pounded, and my muscles tensed. My instincts knew before my mind that there was a strong chance that backslash 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 would be used in her sentence. I had already developed an impressive defense system to the word, constantly on the lookout for it, like our ancestors were for predators. Just as she was about to say backslash 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 backslash, I screamed, "Stop," and ran out of the room with my hands over my ears. She called to me from within her office, but I continued to run down the hallway in a panicked daze. On my way back to my dorm, I ran into two friends, who didn't notice my wet eyes and troubled gaze. They're both from Boston and speak incredibly fast. As they dove into a story about their night out the previous night, my defenses went into overdrive, trying to track their rapid-fire sentences as they both spoke over each other. It was too much. I told them I needed to go and rudely ran back to my dorm room, avoiding any form of conversation on the way. I spent the next 4 days locked in my dorm room in a panic, yelling at Emma not to speak and forcing her to turn off any music, television, or movies. I couldn't read any of my textbooks for fear of seeing backslash 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 backslash. After day 4, my parents were called, and I was taken out of school for the semester. More to come.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I get it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same that crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.